Tszyu blasts out Tony Harrison in the 9th round. Damn, that was a very entertaining fight, I must say. It wasn't a barn burner, but there was some very, very good high-level exchanges, a lot of skill, a lot of technique, and a big finish by Tszyu. So, yeah, let's break this fight down. So, I felt that I outlined this in my preview video, that the kind of conventional wisdom on this fight was that it would be Tony Harrison winning on points or Tszyu winning by KO, by stoppage. And for those of you who didn't see, I very tentatively sided with Harrison, just because I felt Harrison would be able to win on points. I thought he had the skill. I wasn't very impressed by Tszyu in his last performance against Terrell Gausha, and I just felt that Tony Harrison would probably pick up too many of the early rounds and Tszyu would start too slowly. And now I've just watched this fight. I've got some notes on each round. So let's run through them. Round one, I must say that half the round was missing on the copy that I found. But I felt like this was exactly what I expected from Tony Harrison. He was showing great timing, great accuracy with the jab, and stalling the very steady pressure of Tszyu. Because Tszyu, he looks much better from the opening round in this fight than he did throughout the entirety of the Gausha fight, for my money. I thought that Tszyu looked quite a bit more active with the guard. He was a bit more dynamic. And so he's applying his pressure and he's just a bit more of a moving target, showing some different looks, getting into some different positions. But I still felt that Tony Harrison was managing that pressure quite well. Tony Harrison, I outlined this, he does a good job of really slowing the pace of a fight down. And he was doing that effectively in this first round. Round two was much better from Tszyu, I thought. He was still getting caught with a jab in spots, but he landed some very short right-hand counters. And I felt like this was almost the writing on the wall in retrospect, because he was, Tszyu, he was finding a home for that right-handed Harrison. Harrison, his posture, his stance, he has that low left hand, which is good for flicking that jab out and kind of keeping it out of the peripheral vision of your opponent. But you are open yourself, especially at a closer range. With the height and reach advantage, Tony Harrison was much safer, but as soon as he was in that mid-range, he wasn't adjusting his guard, he wasn't adjusting his hand placement, and that left a window for Tszyu to exploit with that right hand, which he did. Round three was a big round for Tszyu. Tony Harrison started well, showing a lot of defensive responsibility, and I feel like he had to do that to mitigate the sharp counters of Tszyu. Because, yeah, the counters of Tszyu in this fight were scarily sharp, I'll say that. He was doing a good job of timing Tszyu with the jab as Tszyu was stepping forward, because he's trying to apply that pressure, and he was just able to really time that jab quite well. However, Tszyu clocked on. He realized that, okay, this is where Harrison's going to use, this is the timing that Harrison is using on his jab. I'm going to counter that with a big right hand, and he hurt Tony Harrison noticeably. Round four was a bit closer. Tony Harrison was spending a lot of time during the round on the ropes, but it wasn't, okay, he's up against the ropes and he's being bullied. He was having some moments of success, and you could see that, okay, even though he's got his back to the ropes, he's working well. He doesn't look like he's under that much pressure, and he's still fighting at a relatively comfortable pace. And I noticed some adjustments. Now he started to use a higher guard, so he's looking to get rid of that window for Tszyu's right hand. And he's actually, rather than relying on his left hand, which is obviously a great weapon, rather than over-relying on it, he started to mix in a probing lead right hand. It wasn't a power shot, of course. It's just throwing the lead right hand out there as a probe, see what he can open up, obviously threaten Tszyu with both hands. And I think that showed that he was, by this point, he was very much wary of the right hand counter over his left jab. Round five was a good round from Tszyu. Some very high quality exchanges throughout the fight at this point. I just felt it was great work from both. Round six, Tony Harrison is still in the fight and he's working well, but you can just sense that Tszyu was starting to gain more control. And when you look at the pacing of the fight, Tony Harrison is having to work a lot more. You know, he's up against the ropes. He's trying to slip and slide and get in some pot shots and get off his own work. And, you know, he's not working at a tremendous pace by any means, but it's a lot more energy he's expending than Tszyu. And Tim Tszyu was the one bringing the pressure. He was pressuring Tony Harrison, keeping him against the ropes, but expending hardly any energy. He's a very efficient pressure fighter, and really an exemplary. It's an example of how to pressure an opponent, because he's just using short movements, not pushing the pace too much, making sure he cuts off the ring, keeping his guard active to unsettle his opponent. I think that Tim Tszyu really showed some high-level pressure fighting, and he also seemed to really catch on to Tony Harrison's timing, which was making it very difficult for Tony Harrison to land that jab, and in any offense really. And the thing is, Tony Harrison at the highest level isn't the biggest puncher. So if you're not a massive puncher, a lot of the time you have to make up by ensuring that your shots are going to land and do damage. But they weren't even doing that. So it was a very difficult position for Tony Harrison to be in. Round 7 was a better round from Tony Harrison. Started to land the jab again. He just really seemed to adjust the timing on it slightly, I felt, just to catch Tim Tszyu during some slight lapses in concentration maybe, which Tim Tszyu does still have those. We're going to address that afterwards. By round 8, Tim Tszyu was really starting to bully Tony Harrison on the ropes. He was a lot more physical. So the other rounds where Tony Harrison was on the ropes, he had a bit more space, a bit more time, whereas now he's being crowded, he's being wrestled with, and he did not have the strength to match Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu looked by far the stronger man. However, Tim Tszyu occasionally pulling out, quite tall. You know, he's coming out in the centre line. Hands aren't in the best place to catch punches, and he's getting caught by the occasional punch by Tony Harrison. But as I say, it's too few and far between from Harrison, and he's not doing enough damage to really make Tim Tszyu stop and think, oh, you know, I can't just bully this guy. And then we get to round 9, and Tim Tszyu closes the show. He I remember what kicked it off was they're at long range, and I think Tony Harrison stepped in with a jab, and Tim Tszyu, he just countered with this beautiful left cross. It was kind of like a left cross, left hook. It was really short, and it just caught Tony Harrison flush. And you know, his legs didn't go, but it stiffened him up a little bit. It noticeably buzzed Tony Harrison. And then from there, Tim Tszyu was just able to let his right hand go because Tony Harrison wasn't completely with it. And he landed a couple right hands, and that froze Tony Harrison. And it got to a point where Tony Harrison's just going to fall flat on his face because he was kind of hunched over. His hands weren't even blocking the punches at all. And Tim Tszyu was just letting rip with right hands. And Tony Harrison then moved backwards onto the ropes, which just allowed Tim Tszyu to let rip one of the most vicious flurries I've seen in a while. And there was like a 7-punch uppercut. You know, what would that be? A centuple? Just 7 uppercuts in a row to the head, all landing very clean. And Tony Harrison just kind of fell to the seat of his pants. The referee was counting. Tony Harrison, it looked like he was going to sit out the count, but he got up at 8. You know, he's very experienced. He's a veteran. Tried to get as much time as he could. Got up. He wasn't swaying around like he was drunk or anything. Still visibly rocked. The referee, I feel, gave him quite a few chances to show he wasn't hurt. He made him walk to the right, made him walk to the left, but then he wasn't happy. The referee didn't like what he saw, and he stopped the fight. You know, because Harrison wasn't all over the place, you know, he wasn't stumbling around like a drunk. I feel like some people may say that, you know, should have given him one more chance, but there was no protest from Tony Harrison. I think the fight was well and truly done then, so I have absolutely no issue with the stoppage. I felt like the referee was already quite generous to Tony Harrison, gave him as many chances as he reasonably could. So I must say, if you haven't seen this fight, you know, check it out. It's a good watch. You know, 9 rounds, and as I say, it's not a barn burner. It wasn't fought at a blistering pace. But if you're someone like me who likes technique just as much as drama, I feel like this is going to be an entertaining watch for you. There was a lot of high-level skill and technique, some very good, intelligent exchanges at times, and I was very impressed with the performances of both men, I must say. But of course, I picked against Tim Tszyu. I thought Harrison would beat him on points. It wasn't a confident prediction, but I thought it would be a banana skin for Tim Tszyu. But credit to him, he won, and he won big. And, you know, I said in my pre-fight video, I hadn't been impressed with Tim Tszyu of late. I was much more impressed with him when he first kicked off his career, but as the level of opposition improved, I felt like he was just not fighting to the best of his ability. And this has, I think this is a good sign. I think Tszyu is still developing, because I was very impressed with his performance here. Still got that patience, but he was a bit more dynamic. So I think he prepared very well. Was very sharp. Not the biggest one punch KO artist by any means, but clearly got very heavy hands, very accurate, and the timing at times is just superb. And also got a good deal of creativity with his punches, because he throws every punch with a good amount of technique. He's got the jab, he's got the right hand, he's got the left cross, the left hook, he's got uppercuts, and I was very impressed with his counters, very impressed with his IQ, and yeah, great performance, as I say. Harrison, I felt like he would last longer. I didn't think that Tszyu would get to him as soon as he did. But, you know, Harrison, to his credit, he was fighting away from home. The ring was quite small. Obviously, they didn't want Harrison to be able to use his legs as much as he wanted. But Harrison, he tried. He tried throughout, so credit to him. Still has some great attributes, this Harrison, but defensively, just not as consistent as you'd like to see. Obviously, the chin, you know, his punch resistance, we've known for a while now that Tony Harrison, if you can get to him, you'd probably be able to get him out there. But, you know, still credit to Harrison. He was fighting away from home. He fought well in spots, but ultimately the better man was Tszyu. Going forward, of course, Tszyu was supposed to fight Jermell Charlo in January. Even though I'm heaping praise on Tszyu, I'm not sure if he beats Jermell Charlo. Not because Jermell Charlo is superior in every way. I don't think that's the case at all. I think this version of Tszyu, from a technical and boxing IQ perspective, I think he's head and shoulders above Jermell Charlo. But I think Charlo, he's not Tony Harrison. He's a lot more hot-headed, so he may be open, but he's a lot tougher, I think, physically and mentally. Not as slick as Harrison. I don't think Charlo's really that slick at all, but he's a different kind of proposition. He's much more athletic, a lot more dynamic, and a lot more dangerous, I think. Harrison not really able to make a dent or put a dent in Tszyu, even though he was landing with some degree of regularity at times. So maybe, for all I know, Tszyu does go on and beat Jermell Charlo. I'm just saying, I'm impressed with Tszyu in this performance, but I'm not sure if that automatically means that he beats Jermell Charlo, just from a stylistic point of view. But hopefully that fight happens next, because I think it's a great fight. I think Tszyu would have proved a lot of people wrong, because there was a fair number of people picking against him, myself included. So great performances, and especially by Tszyu, and hopefully we get that fight between Tszyu and Charlo next. If you've seen this fight, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you feel I've missed anything out that was of any importance? Leave it down there and I'll get back to you. But for now, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.